So welcome back to Freezo Tech. This tutorial is a continuation of our Python series that we began earlier. In this tutorial, we'll be going over class variables in Python. So in the last tutorial, we discussed about how to create objects and general basic to introduction to classes. So today we'll continue with our series. So we're going to talk about class variables. What are class variables? Class variables, these are basically variables within a class that can be shared by all objects of that specific class. So to understand this, I have created a diagram here. So we have a class. Inside of that class we have a class variable, and we have created two objects of that class, so car1 and car2. Okay, there's objects of that class. So all these objects points to that class variable. Okay, so when you update that class variable, the update to be reflected in both objects. So this is what the class variable is. So to understand this more, I will just show you a simple example. So in here, this is where we left from last time. I'll create a class and I'll call it car. Okay, so this class is going to have a variable wheel, which will be 4, because like all cars have 4 wheels, right? So let's create car1, which will be equals to an object of the car class, and also let's create a car2, which will be equals to an object of the car class. So if I print the first car, its wheel, let's see what we get. We got 4. Okay, so the first car, its wheel is 4 because it is an object of this class. So this is what a class variable is. A class variable is not within any methods. Okay, it stands on its own. So imagine maybe you could have like the init. Okay, you could have like the init method here, which we takes in self, and so on. You can have here some things. Okay, so pass, just pass. So a class variable, it is just standing on its own. It doesn't belong to any method within that specific class. It's just on its own. Usually it is kept just after the class name and you assign it over here. It is not within any other either the constructor or any other related method of that class. It stands completely on its own. So that's what a class variable is. So now let's print car2 so that you can see what I mean by the term that they both share, the variable that is shared by all objects of that class. So we get 4 and 4, meaning that both car objects are pointing to the class variable and they are accessing the wheel class variable, which is 4. So just bring us to this diagram. So the class variable is 4, it is this one over here. The class variable is 4, and car1 and car2 are both pointing to the same class variable. Okay, so that's what the class variable is. Now let's move on to imagine that I change class 1 and I say that wheel equals to 5. Maybe a car, maybe in the future we'll have cars with 5 wheels, I don't know. So let's imagine that we have a car that has 5 wheels. So car 1 has 5 wheels. So if I run this code right now, what do you think the output will be? Will it be car 1's wheels, will it be 4 or will it be 5? Will it still point to this variable and print out 4, or will it print out another value? So let's run the code and see what we get. We get 5 and 4. So we can clearly see that the value of the wheels of car 1 has been changed to 4. But why does this happen? Why are we getting this? So to do this, to explain to you this, I have created a simple diagram. So we have car1 and car2 over here. Okay, let me just change this to be car2 and this to be 1. Okay, so we have two of these objects, car1 and car2. We have changed, both of them were previously pointing to the class variable wheel, which had a value of 4. So when you access the wheel variable, we got 4 for both objects. But now car1 has its own variable, which is specific to that object, like object variable, which is wheel has 5 wheels. So what is Python is going to do? First, the object will search within its own namespace to look for that wheel variable. If it finds it, it will use it, but if it doesn't find it, like in the case of car2, if you print the wheel variable, it looks within itself, the object itself, it doesn't have the wheel variable, so it will go to the class which it belongs to and check if it has the wheel variable, and if it does, it will use it. If it doesn't, it will probably get an error. Okay, so in the case of car1, we are printing the wheel, so the car1 object checks it within itself. Do I have the wheel variable? Yes, it does. So it doesn't need to go to the class to pick it, so it's not getting the class variable, so there's no connection between the class wheel and the object car wheel. Okay, so it looks within its namespace. If it has it, it will use it, but if it looks within its namespace, it doesn't have it, then it will refer to the class. If the class doesn't have it, you probably get an error. So to understand this, I'm going to print for you the namespaces, okay, of each object. So I'll just print here car1 dot underscore dict and underscore. So if I run this right now, we see that the namespace, let me just expand this, we can see that the namespace of car has it is a dictionary and has a key of wheel and a value of 5. Okay, and this reflects to this variable that we have changed over here. So if I remove this and then I run again the code, you see now within its namespace there is nothing within the car's namespace. It is completely empty. So that's what will bring us back to the point here. If car1 will look within its namespace for that wheel object, it doesn't have it, which is over over here, it doesn't have it, so it will go to the class and use the one of the class. So the car1 will use the one of the class. So now let's give let me just come over here once and then I'll bring up this. So it will look within its namespace, it doesn't have it, you use the one of the class. So let's bring it back here. So we have it right now. So when car1 will look within its namespace, look for wheel, it has it, so it will not use the one of the class. That's what we get here when you print the code this time around. It has it, so it will not use that one of the class. Okay, now let's check the one of car2. So I'll just print one of car2. So if I change this to 2, so now let's see what we get. So we can see within the namespace of car1 we have the wheel which has a value of 5, and in car2 it doesn't have wheel, so it will go back and use the one of class. This is what this diagram means. So car1 will look at its namespace, if it has it, you use that one. Car2 doesn't have it, so it refers to that of the class. So I hope you understand. So now let's see how you can call variables, class variables in Python. So let's imagine that you have a method here which is called print wheels. Okay, so this will take in the serve keyword. To discuss, all methods within the class must have the serve keywords as their first parameter. Okay, so now we just we can print this out, but no, it's not a good practice to print things in functions. Better just return it. So we just say return serve. Okay, so here I didn't explain to you this. So we can call class variables using two ways. You can either use the serve keyword or using the class name. So let's first take a look at using the serve keyword. So we just say serve dot wheel, right? So that's the name we gave it. Then we're getting this error, indentation, and then I indent this. Yeah, everything should work right now. So let me remove all of this, and then I'll print car1 dot print wheels. I'll call this function. So if I run this right now, we get 4. So car1, it has 4 wheels because it does not have any the wheel variable within its namespace. So this is how we can call a class variable within a function, by using the self keyword. This is the first way. Now the second way is by using the class name. So we can just say car1.wheel, and if you run this, we get the same output, which is 4. So we can use the class name or the self keyword. But why does it a difference between using the self keyword method and using the class name method? The difference is that, let me change this back to self, and then down here I'll say car1.wheel equals to 5. Now if I run this code, what do you think it's going to get? Is it going to output the wheel of 4, or is it going to output the wheel of 5? So let's run this and then we see what we get. We get 5. Okay, but now let me come back here and use the car method, the class name method. We get 4. Why is this happening? If we use the self keyword method, we get we get 5. But if you use the class name method, we get 4. Why is this happening? The difference between the self method and the class name method is that the self method, you can update it, and what we mean by update means that it will use the variable within the object's namespace if it exists. So if you print the namespace of car1._ticked underscore, so if we run this right now, we can find within the namespace of car1 we have the wheel variable, which has a value of 5. So the self method will use that instead. Okay, so if you run this right now, it will use the value within the namespace of that specific object. But if you use the class name method, it will use the one of the class and ignore the one within the namespace of that specific object. So if you print this right now, we see we get 4 despite of having that variable wheel within the class the object namespace. Okay, this is what's the difference between using the class name method and using the self name method. Okay, yeah, so this is what we can this is how you can work with class-based variables in Python. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Please, if it was, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.